It's been an interesting offseason for the Philadelphia Flyers. Not a lot of Flyer fans are thrilled with what's gone on, but Rachel Donner of Locked On Flyers is here to tell us about it and what we can expect from her team this coming season.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast. Gil Martin, so glad you could join us today. And thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. No, your eyes are not deceiving you. It's not Friday. But with me now, and great to welcome back to the show, Rachel Donner, the co-host of Locked On Flyers, to talk a little bit about the Flyers off-season and happy Labor Day weekend, Rachel.
Yes, I know. Surprise. I'm here on a Monday.
Well, you're good enough that we should have you here as often as possible. So I'm glad to have you here on a Monday talking a little Flyers. And as I said in the introduction, not exactly the smoothest offseason for Flyer fans. If you could sum it up just in a few words to sort of give us an overview, how would you describe it?
Yeah, I think it's a situation for the Flyers where what they did not align with what management was saying. And I just think that is ultimately what is happening with the Flyers right now. And Chuck Fletcher made it very clear he was going to do an aggressive retool this offseason. And I think a lot of people, myself included, think that more of a standard rebuild was the right way to go, but that is not what Chuck Fletcher wanted to do. And I can see why, for personal reasons. And, in terms of trying to have a faster turnaround to improve the team after last year's dismal season. And so, the first big move was hiring John Tortorella, right? Which absolutely signals an aggressive retool. He's, certainly a spark of a coach, one might say, and really signals, hard work, solid defensive system, shot blocking, high energy. You got to bring 100% every single shift, and then the other moves just didn't quite align with that.
What do you think the best move of the offseason was?
Oh, geez. That's hard
Give me
to
something,
say.
a little hope to hang my hat on here if I'm a Flyers fan.
Listen, I do think that while I may disagree with the strategy of the RFA signings that he did, Chuck Fletcher gave out a lot of 2-year deals that are like two-way, one-way contracts to the RFAs. And maybe some of them didn't deserve 2 years. They really deserved a one-shot deal. But I do think there are some young kids in the system and that are really good. I do think that guys like Noah Cates and Ronnie Attard and Bobby Brink when he's healthy, Tanner Lazinski. There are these guys that are on the precipice of really maybe taking off. But with John Tortorella, he tends to go for the veterans.
Right.
So will they crack the lineup? That remains to be seen.
Yeah, that's always a tricky situation. Any indication as to who the new captain is going to be?
I'd probably, if I had to put money on it, would say Sean Couturier. But I do think that Cam Atkinson is a dark horse here as well. He just has leadership experience. He has the experience with John Tortorella in Columbus. And I think that he's a little bit more dynamic than Sean Couturier is. And Claude Giroux was sort of a quiet leader. He was a show it instead of say it kind of guy. And
Right.
Couturier is that as well. So they might want to go in a different direction. But I think, at the end of the day, it's going to be Couturier.
Talk to me about the team's defense. Obviously, they struggled in that department last year. Any signs of possible improvement this season?
The big signing obviously on that front was Tony DeAngelo. He got a 2-year, $5 million cap hit contract. And earlier in the season, they had extended Risto for 5 years at $5.1 million. So given that Travis Sanheim, Rasmus Ristolainen, that's your second pairing, repeat from last year. Sanheim is in a contract year, so hopefully that will improve the level of play of that pairing. But given that Ryan Ellis is still a giant question mark in terms of health, it's looking very, very likely that he will not start the season again this year. He only played 4 games last season. I mean, you got to feel for the guy, but that really makes your top pairing Ivan Provorov and Tony DeAngelo. And neither one of them are absolutely stellar defensively.
Right.
So I think what kind of ice time they get in what situations, is Tony DeAngelo going to get more power play time, and are they going to move Justin Braun, who they brought back after trading away to the Rangers at the deadline? Is he going to get some first pairing time at 5-on-5 because he's a little bit more solid defensively and do that in limited minutes?
Talk to me about the goaltending, Carter Hart. A lot of people were high on him, but he has struggled at times as well. What do you expect from him and from the goaltending in general this season?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question because I think people feel pretty confident in Carter Hart that a lot of what went wrong this past season was because of what was in front of him. John Tortorella said as much in the opening press conference, and I feel pretty good about Carter Hart and his progress. And hopefully, things improve in front of them systems wise, that he'll be in good shape. The issue for Flyers goaltending is the backup role,
Right.
because I think they had planned to have a camp competition between Felix Sandstrom, who'd been in the system for a long time, got a few starts toward the end of this past season, and looked pretty solid in net. Wouldn't say blew anybody out of the water, but really did a decent job with the call up. But then at the same time, they had signed Ivan Fedotov, who was the Russian national team goaltender who played spectacularly in the Olympics, won a KHL championship, and was poised to come over to North America, but got caught up in the Russian military draft situation and is currently somewhere in Siberia and or serving in the military somewhere. So given that, I think that there's a lot more pressure on Felix Sandstrom. They signed an AHL journeyman who's 33 years old, Troy Grosenick. They do also have Sam Urson in the system, who I'm looking to really get the bulk of the starts that are possible in Lehigh Valley, but who knows, maybe he could get a call up as well, depending on how Sandstrom does. But it's a little bit of a tricky situation there.
Well, we'll certainly keep an eye on it as training camp gets underway and preseason progresses. Rachel, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Absolutely. I am on Locked On Flyers with my brilliant prospect expert co-host, Russ Cohen. You can find us on Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You can find me on Twitter at @rmiriam, and you can find Locked On Flyers wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, Rachel, always a pleasure. Looking forward to next Friday. If you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you are depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There's a new flavor. Ready? Delicious, indulgent cookie dough covered in chocolate. That's right. Built has done it again. Let me introduce you to your new favorite. Cookie dough chunk puffs have a light and chewy texture, real cookie dough chunks, and of course, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. All the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassles of making it. Plus, it's healthy for you. Cookie dough chunk puffs are only 160 calories and they have a whopping 15 grams of protein. And like all Built Bars, cookie dough chunk puffs covered in 100% real chocolate. That means they're healthy and tasty. Chocolate covered cookie dough with a light, fluffy texture. So good. And what's great about Built is that all their bars are made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. Eat something that tastes good and is good for you. Go to Built.com and use promo code LOCKEDON15 to get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCKEDON15 for 15% off at build.com.